What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the German Bear Podcast. And today I want to talk about the number 9 overall pick of the Chicago Bears in the 2023 NFL Draft and talk about potential players, positions that they could attack with this pick, or potential trade scenarios. As we all know by now, the Chicago Bears got the number 9 overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft after trading down from the number 1 spot with the Carolina Panthers. And I think that's a very interesting spot because you're somewhat out of the range, out of the quarterbacks, right? Potentially 4 quarterbacks going before pick number 9. But you're also in that range where you have the best cornerbacks available, the best tight end, the best wide receivers, and also got tons of tackle and offensive line talent available on the board as well. So for me, that's a very intriguing pick. And the first point that I want to talk about today is actually the potential trade scenarios. Now, the Chicago Bears already obviously traded down to number 9, so I don't know how likely it is that Ryan Poles really wants to trade back down, but it's obviously depending on the price. And what is so attractive about the board at that certain spot is, like I said, the best cornerbacks potentially could still be available in, I don't know, depending on who teams like before number 9, but Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon, Devin Witherspoon out of Illinois, as well as Joey Porter Jr. out of Penn State are 3 really good cornerback prospects that I think almost any team in the league would love to have on the team. Also, wide receivers, you probably have still all wide receivers on the board. No one would have probably been selected by that point anyway. And we're talking about a Jaxon Smith-Njigba, about a potentially whatever. I mean, Quentin Johnson is there, maybe Zay Flowers, who's probably my favorite receiver in this draft class overall. Jordan Addison is there still. So you got all the wide receivers as an option. And then for the offensive linemen, potentially no one picked as well. We're talking Peter Skoronski, we're talking Paris Johnson Jr., Broderick Jones. So for teams to jump up to number 9 wouldn't even be that bad of an idea because now you have tons of options to go with. You got several players that you probably like and the best at their position still available in the draft class. So I'm looking at teams like the Tennessee Titans who could need some wide receiver help. And same also goes for the New England Patriots, who definitely need something added to their wide receiver core, even though they added Juju Smith-Schuster, right? But they could potentially move up. They could use another corner, right? There's several teams that have big needs at certainly cornerback, wide receiver, offensive line that probably want to jump the Chicago Bears. And if I'm the Bears and the price is right, and you get another second-round pick out of that one or a very good player, I think you certainly want to move down because there's several good players at those positions. It's just not one guy, but if one team that tries to move up likes one of those guys specifically, there could definitely be a chance that the Chicago Bears trade down once again. So I think the trade value at that point is still pretty good because, like I said, you got at key positions still the best ones probably available at that pick. And then we're not also including the potential outcome that Will Levis could potentially fall out of the top 10. Same for Anthony Richardson. If somebody doesn't like to take the risk and there's only 1 to 2 teams that really like him, I think that's a possibility too. I think Bryce Young and CJ Stroud are 2 guys that I would definitely say go top 9, but I mean, Will Levis and Anthony Richardson are project players. They're not refined players yet, so you take a certain risk. And especially I'm looking at especially the Las Vegas Raiders, who are probably that 4th team that could take a quarterback after Panthers, Texans, and Colts. If they don't like who's on the board at number 7, and they have Jimmy Garoppolo with a system built around him with Josh McDaniels being there and good weapons, I could see the Las Vegas Raiders really trying to attack next offseason and not going to pick a quarterback at that pick and maybe stack up on weapons or whatever, edge rushers, offensive line, whatever it is going to be, right? But I think there's a real possibility that a quarterback slips to 9. So again, teams like the Tennessee Titans who are looking to probably move on from Ryan Tannehill, teams like the Washington Commanders, like the Detroit Lions potentially as well, getting a backup or a long-term developing player behind Jared Goff as well, or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers even at 19. So I think the trade value at number 9 is actually not that bad. It could definitely be an option. As for the players that are available at the number 9 spot, talking about the needs for the Chicago Bears real quick, we now got a wide receiver 1 in DJ Moore. So I think wide receiver kind of backs down a bit on the needs list. But as we know, Ryan Poles is not a guy that drafts after needs. He drafts after value and the players that he has on the top of his board, which I personally like because you don't want to overdraft players just because they're a need. So obviously that's a good approach. But I think at that number 9 spot, you got several players that could be easily at the top of the Bears board at that pick. Talking about the offensive line, protecting Justin Fields is obviously one of the biggest things that you want to achieve in 2023. So for me, there's 2 guys that absolutely stick out at that spot, and I personally would love, first of all, Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern. Now, the question is obviously, will he play tackle in the league, and do the Bears like or trust him to play tackle in the league? But if they have enough trust in him, and I trust him personally, I think they got one heck of a player there in Peter Skoronski, who's just so technically refined and talented. And also another really talented player at the offensive line spot, Paris Johnson Jr., could easily play a tackle spot right away as well. Still needs to develop a bit in his technique, right? But still, like, upside and potential is through the roof, and he's another player that can play down the stretch for many, many years. And then also, if the Bears really like him, I think Broderick Jones out of Georgia is another really good tackle prospect available at number 9. So you got 3 really good offensive linemen that you couldn't go after. Then defensive line, also very intriguing, especially Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa. I think he's so damn talented. I think I will talk about him a couple of more times during that draft process until we're at the draft, but he's a really good player. Also, Myles Murphy, super talented out of Clemson, better run defender than pass rusher at the moment, but he could develop into a really good player as well. As for Nolan Smith, another really big combine standout out of Georgia, I don't think he's the perfect scheme fit, so we really have to see what he could bring to the Chicago Bears offense, but he's not my favorite one at that pick. And then interior defensive line, you can get Brian Brzee out of Clemson, who had some injury issues, so you definitely take a risk with taking him, but he's so damn talented as a pass rusher. And same applies for Kalijah Cansey out of Pittsburgh, who obviously has a lot of AD comps. I don't want to compare him to Aaron Donald. He just simply goes to the same school and is a bit undersized, but his quickness is really impressive as well, so he's a really another good option as well. So those would be 2 position groups that will be available at 9 that are big needs. The trenches, you want to build the trenches on a team, and I think you can definitely achieve that at the number 9 spot. But then also some other players that could be on the top of the Bears board. A player that's so damn popular for the Chicago Bears, Jaxon Smith-Njigba. I like him a lot too. Great route runner, would be a great fit, honestly, to the Chicago Bears team. And I could kind of see why they would even pick him, because you got Darnell Mooney, you got Chase Claypool, who you have to get contract extensions to if you want to keep them, I think, next offseason already. So if you don't like both players, or just don't like one of those players, either is it, if it's Mooney or Chase Claypool, you could definitely go with Jaxon Smith-Njigba here and just get one of the more talented players that has a connection with Justin Fields and build the offense through that. Now, obviously, you then have 4 really good wide receivers for 2023, but I think no one would complain about it. Like I said, it wouldn't be my favorite pick because I'm more like leaning towards protecting Justin Fields or getting pressure on the opposing quarterback at that pick, but Jaxon Smith-Njigba is a very damn talented wide receiver, really, that I would obviously love to see on the Bears as well if they really like him and have him at the top of the board. And then also, I think cornerback is another position that the Bears have to look at because there are so many talented cornerbacks in this draft class, but Devin Witherspoon is an absolute demon out of Illinois. Also, same applies for Joey Porter Jr. Talking about big cornerbacks that can take away so much for defenses, and I think the Bears still have a hole at cornerback. I know we got Kyler Gordon, but the Bears seem like they really like him in the slot, in the nickel, which is a damn important position on that 4-3 defense if we are in sub packages, which we're most of the time are, because we're just basically not playing any or a lot of base alignments anymore in the NFL. So I think Kyler Gordon plays in the nickel and does really well, and especially after 1 year of truly learning the position because it's so tough. Then you got Jalen Johnson on the opposite side, but then the question just arises, like, who is the guy next to the guy, right? Who's the other opposite outside cornerback? And I think then you can look at Devin Witherspoon or like Joey Porter Jr. and just form one of the nastiest secondaries in the entire NFL with Jaquan Brisker, Eddie Jackson, Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon, and then let's say a Devin Witherspoon at 9. So I wouldn't be mad at that pick at all. I know it's not the biggest need, but it's probably one of the more talented players at 9 that you can pick in Devin Witherspoon or Joey Porter Jr. So I could definitely see the Bears doing that at that position as well. And I mean, that's just a couple of players that could potentially be available at number 9. With some luck, maybe Jalen Carter drops that far, right? We never know how the issues really affect his draft stock, his off-the-field issues, but Jalen Carter is the most talented player in this draft class. Also, Tyree Wilson. I don't know how he could fall to 9, but if he does, that's an easy pick as well. Probably the second best pass rusher that you can get in this year's draft class, maybe even more talented than Will Anderson Jr. So I think the Bears have options over options over options, and I see that just as another win for the Chicago Bears because you are in the driver's seat at the number 9 spot where you still have tons of very good positions and their best players still available at that spot. And if you yourself really like a player and want him on the team, easily pick him. If somebody else calls, trade back. You can look at tackles. You can look at edge rushers, wide receivers, cornerbacks, whatever at that spot then and move on from there. But I think the Bears really put themselves in a really good situation moving on to the 2023 NFL Draft. They have another wide receiver 1. They picked up some really good free agents. And I think overall the Chicago Bears are headed into the right direction to become a successful NFL franchise in the future. And with that being said, that's the end of the episode, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this little talk about the Chicago Bears. Definitely let me know in the comments down below what you think of those several options that the Bears have at number 9 and what you think of that pick overall for the Bears. Also, stay tuned for another mock draft. The mock draft 2.0 is finally dropping, guys, so stay tuned and be excited about that. And with that being said, like and subscribe if you liked the video. Check out Instagram and Twitter if you want to as well. And as always, guys, bear down.